Good morning, everyone. Happy crossover day. It's going to be a good day. I can already feel it. I can just look at the senator from the 28th back there and tell it's going to be a good day today. I recognize the senator from the 28th.
Good morning, Mr. President, and it's going to be a great day here in the great state of Georgia, because today is National Toast Day. So eat lots of toast. It's also National Leap Day. And you probably didn't know this, but the odds of being born on this day are 1 in 1,461. That is 0.068% chance of being born on this day. Mr. President, we got a great lineup of pages, and we got a full calendar. So I'm going to get through them. Out of Tallapoosa, we have Grayson Smith. Out of Lawrenceville, we have Alex Sutter. Out of Commerce, we have Will Sexton. Out of Stone Mountain, we have Jacob Burden and Josiah Burden, two brothers. Out of Decatur, we have Viraj Chaudhry. Out of Roswell, we have Lucas Begley. Out of Rock Springs, we have Brianna Kane. Out of Ringgold, we have Allison Dortch. Out of Hinesville, we have Nevaeh Gibbs. Out of Ringgold, we have Aiden Cadets. Out of Puller, we have Naomi and Rorick Lavoie, little brother-sister combo. Out of Powder Springs, we have Adrienne Marriott. Out of Jefferson, we have Annabelle Pritchard. Out of Atlanta, we have Jack Rawls. Out of Ringgold, we have Isaiah Chadwick. Out of Powder Springs, we have Jillian Taylor. Out of Rossville, we have Edward Torres. Out of Fairburn, Antoine Williams. Out of Roswell, Jake Beasley. And Wiley King, also out of Roswell. Out of Decatur, we have Tristan Davis. Out of McDonough, we have Ethan Whipple. Out of Odom, we have Maggie Anderson. Out of Jessup, we have Jackson Thomaston. And out of Atlanta, we have Liam Mitchell. Y'all give our pages a big round of applause. We appreciate y'all being here. Look forward to working with y'all today. Hope you can spend the whole day with us, because we got a whole lot of bills to get through. Mr. President, this journal's getting mighty thick, but it has been read and found to be correct.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for all the pages we have here today. I tell you what, we need to recognize Kim and Elena, who head up our page program here at the Senate. Let's give them a round of applause. They do a fantastic job, and I think we've had more pages this year, more young people from around the state than I've ever seen. So we appreciate each and every one of you coming here and volunteering your time and being a part of the day with us. So, but we want to thank, and I know in my office, Denise Sampson, she really works hard on the page program as well too. So, great job by all. So thank y'all for being here. All right. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none. The journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk. First reading and references to Senate bills. Secretary?
Senate Bill 563 by Senator Bearden of the 30th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend section 16.521. Senate Bill 564 by Senator Parent of the 42nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the
Health and Human
SCGS.
Services.
Senate Bill 565 by Senator Parent of the 42nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act
Health
to
and
amend.
Human Services.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading references of House bills.
House Bill 451 by Representative Seabrook of the 34th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 45.
Insurance and labor.
House Bill 598 by Representative Cox of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title.
Economic development.
House Bill 643 by Representative Bruce of the 61st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title 40.
Retirement.
House Bill 880 by Representative Ballard of the 147th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 41.
Veterans.
House Bill 971 by Representative Newton of the 127th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the OCGA.
Finance.
House Bill 974 by Representative LaHood of the 175th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the OCGA.
Ethics.
House Bill 996 by Representative Vance of the 133rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 42 of the OCGA relating to general-
Judiciary.
House Bill 1018 by Representative Ridley of the 6th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Titles 10 and 16 of the OCGA.
Banking.
House Bill 1115 by Representative Williams of the 148th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 48.
Finance.
House Bill 1127 by Representative Pergel of the 169th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 2 of the OCGA relating to agriculture so as to authorize the
Regulated
appointment-
industries.
House Bill 1138 by Representative Kendrick of the 95th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 101014 of the OCGA relating to fund
Economic
administration.
development.
House Bill 1181 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act.
Finance.
House Bill 1182 by Representative Crowe of the 118th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend.
Finance.
House Bill 1185 by Representative Camp of the 135th and others, a bill to be entitled.
Finance.
House Bill 1188 by Representative Lott of the 131st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title.
Public safety.
House Bill 1192 by Representative Carson of the 46th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend.
Finance.
House Bill 1251 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1267 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to repeal Chapter 13A relating to tax tribunals, to amend Title 15 of the
Judiciary.
OCGA. House Bill 1303 by Representative Simpson of the 150th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to
Public
amend.
safety.
House Bill 1339 by Representative Parrish of the 158th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so as to revise relative to.
Regulated industry.
House Resolution 598 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the comprehensive.
Judiciary.
House Resolution 1022 by Representative Camp of the 135th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the
Finance.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary Reed, reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had an observation of the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that House Bill 921 do pass, House Bill 1217 do pass, House Bill 1229 do pass by substitute, House Bill 1230 do pass, House Bill 1236 do pass, House Bill 1242 do pass, House Bill 1273 do pass, House Bill 1140 do pass, House Bill 1248 do pass, House Bill 1249 do pass, and House Bill 1250 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Ginn of the 47th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for a second time.
House Bill 461 by Representative Thomas of the 21st and others. Revenue and taxation proceeds to local government and regulatory fees be used to pay for regulatory activity and not general operations require. House Bill 991 by Representative Blackman of the 146 and others. Hospital Medicaid Financing Program, extend sunset provision. House Bill 1035 by Representative Cooper of the 45th and others. Pharmacies Board regulates sale and supply of opioid antagonists through vending machines, authorize. House Bill 1162 by Representative Knight of the 134th and others. Internal Revenue Code and Internal Revenue Code of 1986, revised terms and incorporate certain provisions of federal law into Georgia law. House Resolution 804 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others. Local government temporary loans are payable from end of calendar year to 12 months of initial funding date, change date. Constitutional amendment. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It is now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Senator from the 48th.
Good morning, Mr. President. Ask unanimous consent to please excuse the senator from the 49th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from 49th is excused. Recognize the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, you all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 7th, 38th, and 43rd for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senators from the 7th, 38th, and 43rd are excused. Are there any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 2nd, are you protesting this day? You're only no vote on the roll call there. Okay, good. All right. Mhm. Right. It is now time for our morning devotion. If all senators would take their seats and cease all conversation, I would ask the doorkeepers to secure the chamber at this time. It is my pleasure to introduce or have our senator from the 41st introduce our chaplain of the day and lead us in our pledge. Senator?
Will you please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now to the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Well, good morning, colleagues. It's my great honor today to introduce to you all our chaplain of the day, the Reverend Tricia Templeton. Perhaps more than anything on this sheet that they've given me, I want to start by introducing her as my friend and also as a mentor. I've been ordained in the Episcopal Church since I was younger than I want to acknowledge. And Tricia Templeton has been a friend and a colleague and a mentor along the way as I've progressed in my own ministry. Reverend Templeton is the rector of St. Dunstan's Episcopal Church in Sandy Springs. That's where she grew up and went to high school, and then she's returned home to serve there. Tricia is a proud graduate of UGA. But don't worry, she's from a blended family. Her son also is now a graduate of Georgia Tech. Tricia, in addition to serving as a pastor and priest in the Episcopal Church, has also served in the Peace Corps in Thailand, where she worked with a refugee camp. She and her late husband, Joe Monty, have a son, Joseph Henry, whom they adopted at a very young age, and Tricia indeed has inspired me in my own journey to parenthood. The last thing I'll say by way of introducing her is that I invited Tricia to be my chaplain of the day last year around this same time, and she wasn't able to be here because her then husband was in the hospital struggling with COVID. And unfortunately, he succumbed to that disease. And so here we are a year later, approaching the anniversary of his death, and Tricia had the graciousness and kindness to still offer a word of encouragement to us this day. With that, I introduce you to Reverend Tricia Templeton.
Thank you, Kim. Kim said some things about me that I want to say about her, that we've known each other for a long time, since she was a baby priest. She was ordained very young. That was 14 years ago. And we have, as she's become more and more experienced, she's turned into one of the finest priests I know. She's an inspiration to me in her work for justice, especially for the most vulnerable people in our society. She's a voice for them, whether it be from the pulpit or on the streets or here in the Senate chambers. So it's a privilege for me to call her both colleague and friend. This is the kind of friend she has been to me. She has subbed for me at St. Dunstan's a lot over the years when I was away, and then she told me she wasn't going to be doing that anymore because she had a few other things to do. But about this time last year, or a little earlier, she called me and said, I know what's going on. When can I come and preach for you? And it was in the middle of the session. I took about 3.5 months off of work. Tomorrow, actually, is the first anniversary of my husband's death. But she was right there with us, and I will always remember that. It's a privilege to call her my friend. It's a privilege to be with all of you here today, too. The first time I was in these chambers was 50 years ago, so I'm showing my age here. I was a senior at Ridgeview High School, which is now a middle school in Sandy Springs. And I was planning to go to the University of Georgia in the fall to major in journalism. So one of my teachers in high school allowed me to do an independent study on women in journalism to help prepare me for that. And that entailed interviewing some of Atlanta's female news reporters. There were not nearly as many of them now as there are now. One who you might remember is Judy Woodruff, who at that time was a brand new reporter, I think for the CBS affiliate here, just getting her start. And of course, she went on to do great things with CNN and most recently with NPR. But the most well-known female journalist at that time in Atlanta was Celestine Sibley. I don't know if any of you remember her. I see a few nodding heads. She was legendary. She wrote a column 5 days a week for 40 years for what was in the Atlanta Constitution. She's authored a shelf full of books, fiction and nonfiction, but she saw herself primarily as a reporter. And she had two favorite things to report on. First of all, a good, juicy murder trial. She covered the trial of James Earl Ray, of course, who assassinated Martin Luther King. And her second favorite thing to report on was the state legislature. She was a fixture in this building for decades. And I know there's some people from the press back there. If I remember correctly, the press room was named after her after she died. I don't know whether it still is or not. Change it? Okay. But I was an awkward teenager, a little more intimidated at the thought of interviewing her. But she told me just to come on down to the Capitol and we'd talk and she'd show me around. That conversation ended up being the beginning of a 25-year relationship with Celestine, who was first my mentor and then my dear friend until her death, and I officiated at her funeral. But one of my clearest memories of her is from that first meeting 50 years ago. Being a journalist, she told me then, was a calling, just as much as medicine or ministry. To her, it was a sacred duty to write the truth, to treat everyone she talked to with respect, even when she was asking the hard questions, and to be a voice for those who have no voice. For many years, Celestine's words guided me as a reporter and editor, including a stint covering the Tennessee State Senate. When I felt that calling begin to shift and made the decision to go to seminary, many people said I was following a higher calling. My response was no, not a higher one, just a different one. I think if Celestine were here today, she would say that all of you in this chamber also have a calling, a sacred duty to represent your constituents and to work together for the common good. Journalist, priest, lawmaker, in truth, we all share the same calling. In the Christian tradition, we describe it as working to help bring about God's kingdom here and now, to help our community become as God intends for it to be as we live and care for one another. The Old Testament prophets tell us what that involves: to care for widows and orphans who were then and are now among the poorest of the poor, to care for aliens or the immigrants who are in our midst. The prophets remind us again and again that God judges a nation not by its wealth or military prowess, but by how well it treats the most vulnerable among us. Jesus put it a bit more succinctly: to love our neighbors, all of them, near and far, as ourselves. In the Episcopal Church, that is spelled out in the promises we make in our baptismal covenant, which we renew every time there's a baptism in the church. We promise that we will work for justice and peace by seeking and serving God and all people and respecting the dignity of every human being, no matter their gender, race, creed, or orientation. That work is easier said than done. Sometimes it seems impossibly hard, and progress can be slow if discernible at all. It's easy to get discouraged. But I want to offer you two antidotes for those days when you wonder what difference you make. The first is from singer-songwriter Iris DeMent, whose recent album contains the song "Working on a World." In it, she has an answer to her own discouragement at the slow pace of justice. She sings these words: Oh, but then I got to thinking of the ones who came before, of all the sacrifices that they made to open up so many doors, doors I get to walk through on streets paved for me by people who were working on a world they never got to see. I don't have all the answers to the troubles of the day, but neither did our ancestors, and they persevered anyway. When I see a little baby reaching out its arms to me, I remember why I'm working on a world I may never see. I'm working on a world I may never see, joining forces with the warriors of love who came before and will follow you and me. I get up in the morning knowing I'm privileged just to be working on a world I may never see. That same sentiment is expressed in the Jewish Talmud in a reflection on the prophet Micah's words, one of my favorite verses of Scripture. What does the Lord require of you, O mortal, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? I have these words on the wall above my desk. I offer them to you today as a prayer. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Finally, I leave you with this blessing. May God bless us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we may live deep within our hearts. May God bless us with anger at injustice and oppression, so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, injustice, famine, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and help turn their pain into joy. May God bless us with enough foolishness to believe we can make a difference in the world, so that we can do what others claim cannot be done. And may God's blessing be with each one of you and on the sacred work to which you have been called this day and always. Amen.
We have with us today, we've got a special group up in the gallery. We've got one of our hospital associations. We've got a bunch of our rural hospital, 27 of our rural hospital administrators and staff and everything else. Let's give them a round of applause today because for helping out with all our rural healthcare needs. As many as you know, I'm from rural Georgia, and I know how important it is. So we appreciate y'all being here today, and thank you for everything you do in your respective communities. So thank y'all very much. Senator from the 33rd, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of order, sir. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 9th and the 33rd for business inside the Capitol.
Senator, you're the 33rd. You excusing yourself?
I'm trying to, along with the senator from the 9th.
All right. Without objection, Senator from the 9th and 33rd are excused. Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Recognize the senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to honor Self-Direction Day. And for those of you that don't know, self-direction is an optional model of home and community-based services delivery that enables individuals of all ages with all types of disabilities to maintain their independence at home and their local community. And so we appreciate them and their advocacy. If we got anybody here for Self-Direction Day in the gallery, please wave. They're all up there. Y'all please give them a round of applause for being here today. And at some point today, I'll be presenting you this resolution. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Senator. Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? All right. Ready to move on? You have before you a consent calendar of privileged resolutions. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the consent calendar is adopted. Senator from the 4th, for what purpose do you rise?
Yes, Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that Senate Bill 558 and Senate Bill 560 be withdrawn from the Committee on SLOGO General and be committed to the Committee on State and Local Government Operations.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 558, a bill by Senator Harrell of the 40th, a bill to be enacted an act to amend an act creating a new charter for the city of Doraville, approved October 13, 1971, as amended, so as to change the corporate limits of such city, to provide descriptions, to provide for a referendum, effective dates, and for other purposes. Senate Bill 560, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating a new charter for the city of Doraville, approved October 13, 1971, as amended so as to change the corporate limits of such city, to provide descriptions, to provide for a referendum, effective dates, automatic repeal, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The senator has moved that Senate Bill 558 and Senate Bill 556 be removed from state and local government general and to state and local government local. Is there objection? Hearing none, motion prevails. Recognize the senator from the 41st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that SB 562 be withdrawn from the Committee on SLOGO General and committed to the Committee on SLOGO Local.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 562, a bill by Senator Jackson of the 41st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide for a new charter for the city of Pine Lake, approved April 4th, 1991, as amended so as to restate the city's charter, to change the corporate limits of such city, to transfer powers from the mayor, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator has moved that SB 562 be moved from SLOGO General to SLOGO Local. Is there objection? By objection, the motion prevails. You have before you a consent calendar of local bills. Mr. Secretary, have you had any objections been filed for any of the bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, no objections have been filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on the State and Local Government Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Question is on the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. It is always a pleasure to recognize. Oh, I got to announce a vote here. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and nays are 0. This bill on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. It is always a pleasure to introduce and recognize our doctors of the day, and we are so proud to have Dr. LaJune Oliver here today from Columbus, Georgia, Mays High School graduate, Emory undergraduate, and Augusta University Medical School. Now, that's homegrown as they come right there now. So we're going to make a commercial for you right here. But it is my pleasure to have her here today, and she does a wonderful job, and we appreciate all our physicians that come down here and volunteer their time. And the senator from 39th was here because she's here in Atlanta and headquartered here in Atlanta. She was here to lend her support. Even though she wasn't the designated senator, she's proud to have her here as well. So, but I introduced Dr. Oliver to say a few words. Doctor?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Jones, and good morning to each of you. It is my pleasure as a Georgia native to bring greetings to you today, as well as to serve as your Doctor of the Day. I will be here all day with you on this great crossover day. I also bring greetings from the Southeast Permanente Medical Group. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
All right, good job. Good job. Appreciate that, Dr. Oliver. Senator from the 35th, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I have a point of personal privilege. I wanted to thank you for allowing us to have our Black History Month this whole month. Today is the, last day of February, leap year day.
It's the 29th, that's right,
And
Senator.
it's the last day. And from the 3 light traffic signals, refrigerated trucks, automatic elevator doors, color monitors, desktop computers to shape the modern ironing board, the clothes wringer, blood banks, laser treatment for cataracts, home security systems, and the Super Soaker children toys, and so many other objects and inventions were made by African Americans. So thank you for allowing us to at least express our congratulations to all of them and on this special month, even though some of us do celebrate the entire year and not just 1 month. So thank you, Mr. President, and then we'll be back next year.
All right, Senator.
All
We
right,
appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you. Senators from the 51st, Majority Leader, for what purpose do you rise?
A motion, please. I'd like to
State your
move that
motion.
SB 403 and SB 180 be engrossed at this time.
The Senator has moved. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 403, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to ad valorem taxation of property so as to revise the language required to be included in the notices of current assessment, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, and for the purposes. Senate Bill 180. A bill by Senator Setzler of the 37th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to provide for the preservation of religious freedom, to provide for legislative findings and determinations, to provide for the granting of relief, to provide for definitions, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Would you like to speak to the measure? The senator has made a motion to engross Senate Bill 403. And is there objection? Objection. There is objection. Would you like to speak to the objection, Senator? No? All right, we'll make this quick. All those in favor of the senator's motion will vote yay. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 29, the nays are 21, and this motion has prevailed. Moving on to the rules calendar. Secretary Reed, Senate Bill 479.
Senate Bill 479, a bill by Senator Hatchett of the 50th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 14 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the OCGA relating to secondary metals recyclers, so as to provide for the applicability of the definition of the term used, detached, catalytic converters, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. The Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 479, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 14 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the OCGA relating to secondary metals recyclers, so as to provide for the applicability of the definition of the term used, detached, catalytic converters, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the cowboy from Habersham County, Senator from the 50th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to bring you Senate Bill 479. This is a cleanup bill from Senate Bill 60 we passed last year dealing with catalytic converter theft. This cleans up some language that need to be cleaned up from the Sheriff's Association and the secondary metal recyclers. If there's any questions, I'm happy to yield, or I'll yield the bill. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the bill.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 28th, for what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that we're doing a bill in less than a minute, and at this pace we could do the whole calendar in an hour?
Well, Senator, you're the chairman. You put all these bills on the calendar. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Secretary, read Senate Bill 507.
Senate Bill 507, a bill by Senator Gooch of the 51st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 4286.1 of the OCGA relating to special license plates, promoting or supporting certain worthy agencies, funds, or nonprofit corporations, and qualified motor vehicles or drivers with proceeds deposited into the general fund, so as to establish an America First specialty license plate and for the purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. Additionally, Senator McLaurin of the 14th and others offered the following Amendment 1 to amend Senate Bill 507 by replacing America on line 16 with Donald Trump and striking deposited in the general fund and replacing with dedicated to the civil and civilized defense funds of presidential candidates on line 22. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the majority leader to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, this is a real simple bill that you've seen over and over again. In fact, there's been over 400 of them in this history of this state. It's a new license plate that'll be sold to the citizens of Georgia. This bill allows for another special license plate to be issued that'll display the image of the American flag. And let me show it to you so you'll know what we're looking at. This is the image of it. And the words America First will be written across the bottom of it. This represents patriotism. It's a commitment to prioritize the interests of the nation above all else and to reinforce a sense of national pride and unity. The funds raised by the sale of this special license plates will be deposited back into the general funds. The cost of ordering one of these plates will be $35, and then every year after that you pay your normal $20 fee like you do today. So, Mr. President, I'm sure that the good senators in this chamber are excited to pass this bill, and we'll move on to the next bill on the calendar. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You do have a question, Senator. Recognize Senator from 26. Senator Waves.
Thank you very much.
We do have an amendment on this bill. I think the Secretary just read the amendment. I recognize the Senator from the 14th, the author of the amendment, speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to Crossover Day. We are excited to be here. I will spare you the long lecture about the history of the phrase America First, except just to share this one fun fact, that the America First Committee, an influential political pressure group in the U.S. from 1940 to 41, was known for opposing aid to the Allies in World War II because it feared direct American involvement in the conflict. So obviously there's a weird history to that phrase, but the amendment today is very simple. We're just replacing America on line 16 with the words Donald Trump. I think what I'm trying to do, and I will admit that I did not consult with the author prior to making what I consider a friendly amendment, but I think what I'm really trying to get at here is just the heart and the spirit of the legislation. Several Republicans in here know that I really work well with y'all to get to the heart of what the bill's trying to do in committee and otherwise, and that's the spirit of this bill. We did have a much longer amendment that had the words narcissism in it, and as you heard, because it bled through, we were going to dedicate the funds to the civil and criminal defense of presidential candidates. But I'm here for compromise today, and I want to get to yes. So we have narrowed the amendment down to a simple version that we think everybody in the chamber should be able to get behind, and that is making this bill what it's really about, Donald Trump first. Mr. President, I'd be thrilled to yield for questions.
All right. Recognize the senator from the 19th. Hold on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I will.
Senator, thank you for the amendment. I'm inclined to support it. I want to make sure, though, before I do support it and change the underlying bill, the author of the author's intent, if we do pass this amendment, will you be supporting the bill?
I will not, and that's an unfortunate aspect of doing work in the chamber, is that you want to make legislation as accurate as it possibly can be, but even then, sometimes you can't get behind it. But that's a very good question, Senator.
You do have a few more questions, Senator. Senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I sure do.
Senator, I initially was going to encourage you to change your party registration to the Republican Party and was going to welcome you in, but after that question that you don't support the bill, I guess my question would be, are you American? Do you support America? Or are you a communist infiltrator? Why would you be opposed to honoring our country?
Well, I thought I would wear my red tie today, Senator, but that might make it too obvious. I'll put it this way. For me, Donald Trump is at the very least second. So I wouldn't be able to support the bill as amended, and that's why I answered the senator that way.
So do I take it you will support the bill to honor our country, America's first?
What I'm going to do is go around the hallways today and do what I always do, which is do the work of the people and do it in the name of this state of Georgia and in the name of this country, the United States of America. I'll do it proudly. And if anybody wants to test me on that, I'll salute the flag and drop and do 20 push-ups on command, sir.
All right. We'll let you know later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I do yield.
I just want to thank you for bringing this excellent amendment I look forward to supporting. I noticed, though, you did not change the design of the plate. And I'm wondering if you have any proposed design changes that you might like to see along with your name change here.
Senator, I don't have any JPEGs on my laptop that I think would most accurately represent the imagery that would be appropriate for a Donald Trump first license plate. So I didn't come prepared with my graphic design, but I will say there are some far-right groups that I have a lot of such JPEGs on their laptops that they might be able to help you out.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Would you be willing to work with the author on this new design after we pass your change? And would you be supportive of a second amendment to this bill that named it the Senator McLaurin license plate, recognizing President Trump?
Senator McLaurin, Donald Trump first would be the way.
No, I'm just saying we just name the bill after the good
Sure.
senator who brought the good amendment.
If you can get a Senator McLaurin bill that says Donald Trump first through the House, I'll go to the signing.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Senator, and I'll yield the well.
Senators yielded the well. Senator from the 31st, what purpose do you rise? You waive it? All right. Would you like to close debate, Senator? Recognize the majority leader and close debate.
I don't need any more questions. Thank you. Senators, look at this tag very closely. It says America First. It's not about a person, and it sure isn't about a person that's in the White House, who's been in the White House, or who may be in the White House in the future. It's about our nation and our country and the state of Georgia. If you're not a patriot and you're not for unity in this country and supporting what's good for our nation, then hit the red button. On the other hand, if you want to put our nation first and make America first a priority, then you hit the green button. It's simple as that. It's not about a personality, it's about our nation. Thank you very much. Please vote for the bill.
Senators yield to the well. All right. He's closed debate. Is there objection to previous question be ordered? Chair hears none. Previous question is ordered. We're going to bring up Amendment 1, authored by the senator from the 14th. Is there objection to Amendment 1? We got several objections. All right. All those in favor of Amendment 1, rise, stand, and be counted. Okay, they want roll call. You got 5 for roll call. So all those in favor of the amendment from the senator from the 14th will vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the amendment, yeas are 26 and nays are 29, and this amendment has failed. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is the objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the second, for what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State your
President.
inquiry.
Mr. President, is it not true that I'm voting no on this legislation because it just says America, but there's a North America, a Central America, and a South America?
Senator knows what he speaks. Senator from the 51st, for what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry. I was just going to say, isn't it true that we have some bipartisan support here this morning? We're ready to go to work. Thank you very much.
I know. I felt that too in the air. I felt like a bridge was being built this morning. So, on the passage of the bill, the yeas are 34, the nays are 19. This bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary read Senate Bill 503.
Senate Bill 503, a bill by Senator Brass of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 43 of the OCGA relating to professions and businesses so as to amend Chapter 41 relating to residential and general contractors, to rename the general contractor license as a commercial general contractor license, and to make conforming amendments throughout and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Beach of the 21st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Simple bill. Don't let the 100 pages fool you. We're simply decoupling general contracting licenses. They were put together almost 20 years ago. We're coming in and cleaning up, a lot of cleanup language. That's most of the pages. And the rest simply pulls out a commercial contractor from a residential contractor. I'll yield for questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to a report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 55 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary Reed, Senate Bill 505.
Senate Bill 505, a bill by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to regulation of hospitals and related institutions, so as to provide provisions relating to required publication by a hospital of certain financial documents on its website, to provide for uniform reporting requirements, to require the hospitals to annually provide the uniform resource locator for the webpage containing the financial documents and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. Additionally, Senator Jackson of the 41st and others offer the following amendment to amend Senate Bill 505 by inserting after documents on line 5 the following: to provide for community benefits by striking lines 15 through 17 and inserting in lieu thereof the following. A, as used in this code section, the term 1, community benefit, means, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 19th. Speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2019, we passed Senate Bill 321. It had disclosure requirements for nonprofit hospitals. Some of those followed, some hospitals followed, some didn't. What this bill does, it says if you don't follow those, you could possibly lose your state funding. Thank you, Mr. President. Yield the will.
Recognize the senator from the 41st to speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a friendly amendment. These same very hospitals that we've asked to make their reports publicly, we are now asking that they meet some definitions of what community benefits are. These hospitals are nonprofits who don't pay a single dime in taxes, and yet they've been saying that their community benefits are handing out some Frisbees or some koozies in a park. That is no longer acceptable, and this amendment will make that clear. Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Hearing none. First, we'll take up Amendment 1 authored by the senator from the 41st. Is there objection to that amendment? Without objection, the Amendment 1 is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received a requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Secretary Reed, SR 616.
Senate Resolution 616, A resolution by Senator Still of the 48th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that the General Assembly by general law may provide for the allocation of certain additional safety, recommends that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 48th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Human trafficking is all about the commodification of the vulnerable. Traffickers see this as a supply and demand issue. And the supply is children and vulnerable adults. The demand is those who would purchase our children and vulnerable adults for sex. Traffickers treat our children as a renewable resource. They can sell a gun or drugs one time, but they can sell a child for sex over and over. The victims are considered a renewable resource. Traffickers likely aren't going to kidnap a child, they will coerce them. They build a prison of words to enslave the vulnerable. Fear is their tool, and they're wielding it every day on fellow Georgians. This isn't just a young girl issue. It is a boy issue. It is an adult issue. It is an immigrant issue, and it is your neighbor next door. Here are the numbers according to Street Grace and Wellspring. 3,600 kids are sold each year in Georgia, and that may seem like a big number, but look at it like this. If you put every senator in this chamber onto a school bus, you would have to do that 72 times to equal the number of children that are trafficked in our state each year. The average age of a youth being trafficked in Georgia is 14, and 1 in 6 runaways are likely victims of trafficking. Worst of all, the number of men in our state who pay for sex with a minor is approximately 13,000. Human trafficking is the fastest growing, second largest illicit industry on the planet. To quote my good friend Bob Rogers of Street Grace, when we grew up, we knew where the monsters were. They were under the bed and in the closet. Now they work with us, they attend church with us, they play Little League sports with us, and they shop where we shop. The purpose of SB 512 and Senate Resolution 616 are simple: to eradicate the sexual exploitation of our children and vulnerable adults. If there are no buyers, there is no trafficking. These bills will make Georgia the toughest state in the country to be a trafficker, and these bills will take from those convicted of trafficking and put those dollars directly back in the hands of the victims to help them rebuild their lives and get the resources they need. This bill is presented today with the help of the following people and organizations and the culmination of 6 months of work. Bob Rogers of Street Grace, Christian Murphy of Wellspring, Bruce Deal of City of Refuge, and of course my amazing team of Scott, Dana, Lillian, Bentley, David, and most of all Heather Fisher of Thomson Reuters. So with that, let's break down SB 512, which includes the enabling language for SR 616, the resolution and constitutional amendment before you. Part 1 is the enabling legislation. So currently there is a victims fund, but it is only for minors, and it is funded with tax dollars. This constitutional amendment will allow us to use civil forfeiture upon conviction to get victims the resources they need. The administration of this is via a commission, which has much the same language as the one that is for minors only. Funding comes also from a $2,500 fine, which is an increase of the $1,000 fine we currently have. The overall idea of this is to expand access for assistance to trafficking victims and fund it with all of those assets taken from those convicted of this horrible crime. The ballot language in Senate Resolution 616 is as follows, and this would be on the ballot in November if we vote yea. Yes or no, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to allow additional penalties for criminal cases in which a person is adjudged guilty of trafficking an individual for labor servitude or sexual servitude to fund the Victims of Human Trafficking Fund, to pay for care and rehabilitative and social services for individuals in the state who have been or may be sexually exploited. Part 2 of Senate Bill 512 is mandatory hotel motel training requirements if they don't already have those training requirements as provided by our own CJCC. It also puts a special focus on temp agencies that might be used for housekeeping. Section 2.2 of Senate Bill 512 talks about what can be charged to a minor for this act. Special thanks to Senator from the 41st on her assistance in raising that from 17 to 18. And lastly, this bill was created with the input and engagement from the Lieutenant Governor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, the Governor's Office, and members of the Grace Commission. And I thank them for all of their help and guidance in this. Coming shortly will also be a friendly amendment from the good senator from the 6th, who might be running around somewhere. Senator from the 6th, Senator from the 6th? Senator from the 6th, do you have that amendment, or is that forthcoming? Okay, there could be an amendment coming from the senator on the 6th on that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask your favorable vote on Senate Resolution 616, and then following Senate Bill 512. Thank you.
Did he just come up here and lobby for 2 different bills in one setting? I've never seen that. Just Senator from the 28th, I've never seen a guy quiz another member and then lobby for 2 bills in one setting. Have you? There are rules and fractions, aren't they? Yeah. Well, you weren't quick, but all right. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Hearing none. The amendment will be on the following piece of legislation. So what we're voting on right now is just the SR 616. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from 36, for what purpose do you rise? Waive it. On the adoption resolution, the yeas are 55, the nays are 0. The resolution having received the requisite 2/3 constitutional majority is therefore adopted. Good job, Senator. Good job, Senator. You did a lot of good work, and with the Grace Commission, and also the bipartisan effort that has gone into trying to tackle that very complicated issue that we have here in the state. So we appreciate all your hard work. Secretary Reed, SB 512.
Senate Bill 512, a bill by Senator Still of the 48th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 21 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to payment and disposition of fines and forfeitures so as to create the Victims of Human Trafficking Fund and the Victims of Human Trafficking Fund Commission, to amend Code Section 16-6-13.3 of the OCGA relating to civil forfeiture of proceeds and property, so as to provide for the forfeiture of proceeds or money which is intended for used in any manner to facilitate or derive from criminal offense and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. The Senate Public Safety Committee offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 512, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 21 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to payment and disposition of funds and forfeitures, so as to create the Victims of Human Trafficking Fund and for other purposes. Senator Estevez and others offer the following amendment to amend the Senate Committee on Public Safety substitute to Senate Bill 512 by replacing line 17 with the following: above a certain age, to amend Code Section 17-1021 and 35-337 of the OCGA relating to vacating of sentence for trafficking victim defendants and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 48th. Speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all for your favorable vote on Senate Resolution 616. We're just going to vote now for the enabling legislation, Senate Bill 512. With that, I yield the well.
Good job, Senator. I recognize the senator from the 6th to speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly, this amendment, I want to thank the senator from the 48th for bringing this great piece of legislation. This amendment further protects survivors of human trafficking by ensuring that Georgia's vacatur laws cover all survivors of human trafficking, including those who plead as part of the first-time offender statute. With that, Mr. President, I yield the well, unless there are questions.
You have no questions, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. We're going to take up Amendment 1, authored by the senator from the 6th. Is there objection? Without objection, Amendment 1 is adopted. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Hearing none, the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 27th, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, isn't it true that under your great leadership this morning, we are now voting on our 7th bill in just over an hour, and that while that side of the room seemed to be enamored with the expediency of the pro tem, we on this side of the room are impressed with your hard work this morning?
Well, I tell you what, flattery gets you everywhere, Senator. Senator from the 19th, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Who's the pro tem?
On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 55, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by a substitute. Good job, Senator from the 48. Let's give him a round of applause. Secretary will read caption SP 395.
Senate Bill 395, a bill by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to student health in elementary and secondary education, so as to authorize the possession of opioid antagonists in schools and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Education and Youth recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Education and Youth offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 395. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to student health in elementary and secondary education, so as to authorize the possession of opioid antagonists in schools and for other purposes. Additionally, Senator Dixon of the 45th offered the following amendment to amend the Senate substitute to Senate Bill 395 by inserting recklessness or gross negligence after misconduct on line 43, by replacing for a willful or wanton with where such on line 50 and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 45th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate colleagues, it's my honor to bring Senate Bill 395 before you today. The intent of the bill is to help save lives from opioid and fentanyl overdoses in schools. My wife is the First Lady of the 45th is here with us today, and this is a picture of her cousin, Wesley Gay, which the bill is named after. It's named Wesley's Law, and he lost his life. There was a substance that he had taken, and it had fentanyl laced in it, and he lost his life. So this bill is to honor him, but grateful also for the senator from the 8th and the lieutenant governor's work on the bill that they passed earlier this week, strengthening the penalties for people that put fentanyl in drugs. And this will just go a step further to help save lives in schools. Currently, in schools, only the school nurse can administer Narcan or naloxone, and it has to be kept in the school. It has to be kept in the school clinic. This bill would make it more readily available. It would allow teachers, administrators, visitors, anyone that's in the school could carry naloxone or Narcan. There's no known side effects to the drug. Also, if it's administered and you're not having an overdose from fentanyl, there's no known side effects from it. It would also, this bill also, it requires schools to keep some naloxone or Narcan in the school, but it's also written very vaguely, so there's no pressure on the schools if for some reason the drug is not readily available, or the school doesn't have the funding to be able to keep it, or if they've administered it and they have a lower amount on hand, there's no penalties for the school system if they don't have a certain amount. So there's no set amount that they've got to have on hand as well. Narcan or naloxone, it's got a 3-year shelf life. And there's also several grants that the school systems could get funding for it if they can't afford it from their general fund. And with that, Mr. President, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You do have a couple questions, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 36th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes, I do.
So sorry for the loss that your family's experienced.
Thank you.
Our hearts go out. Thank you for bringing the bill. And isn't it true that there are oftentimes situations where the nurse's station in a school is understaffed, or one nurse is covering several schools? So without your bill, there could be the remedy locked away in a nursing station that the school staff couldn't access. Isn't that true?
It is very true, and you are spot on. Within an overdose, within 3 to 5 minutes, someone could lose their life. So it's needs to be administered very quickly if someone experiences an overdose from fentanyl.
Thank you. And just final question. It's true now that we have a reversal kit down by the trooper station on the first floor here in the Capitol that all should be aware of. One more step in the right direction.
That is true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I do.
I'm very supportive. I'm concerned that the syntax of your amendment creates on line 4243 a series that doesn't have all the commas that it needs, so that it creates a term that's sort of clunky. It says, shall not apply to an act of willful or wanton misconduct, recklessness. Would you be open to a friendly amendment just to stick a comma right before recklessness?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
for my friend from the 14th.
Well, Senator, the great news is that amendment's coming, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Senator, you spoke to your amendment, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Go ahead and speak to your amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment that I offered, also within the bill, I may have failed to speak to this, but there's also indemnification from teachers, from school systems, from anyone visiting the school if they decide to administer Narcan or naloxone, or if they decide not to, they would could not be held liable or for any civil liabilities. And this amendment is just some cleanup language to make sure that we capture all that.
More questions? You have no
Thank you,
further
Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any senator wish to speak for or against the measure? We do have a couple amendments here. Amendment 1, I think, has been read. Now we have Amendment 1A that needs to be read. Secretary?
Senator McLaurin of the 14th offered the following Amendment 1A to amend Amendment 1 on Senate Bill 395 by inserting a comma before recklessness on line 1. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator, do you want to speak to your amendment? Senator has waived. The question has been called, and now it's on to the amendments. Amendment 1A, is there objection? Amendment 1A from the senator from the 14th. Is there objection to Amendment 1A? Without objection, Amendment 1A is adopted. We're now at the posture of Amendment 1, authored by the senator from the 45th, author of the underlying bill. Is there objection to Amendment 1? Without objection, Amendment 1 is adopted. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Hearing none, the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea, all opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Good job, Senator. And it's good to have Mrs. Dixon here, the First Lady from the 45th, the real boss in the chamber here. Good to see you. Good to see you. Secretary reads Senate Bill 414.
Senate Bill 414, a bill by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others, a bill to be an act to amend Chapter 18 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state printing and documents, so as to prohibit the collecting of certain personal information and for the purposes. The Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 414, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 18 of Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state printing and documents, so as to prohibit the collecting of certain personal information and for other purposes. Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others offer the following amendment to amend the Senate Committee on Judiciary substitute to Senate Bill 414 by inserting at the end of line 22 the following: such term shall not include any public agency and for other purposes. Additionally, a minority report has been filed. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 18th, the pro tem, senator from the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. We've still got a little bit of the morning left. You know, charities and nonprofits play a very important role in our society, and we certainly understand that here in Georgia and look at the many good works that charitable organizations do. This bill seeks to protect charitable donor information from unnecessary government collection and disclosure. Our Constitution protects the freedom of association, right? The 14th Amendment protects the freedom to associate as a fundamental part of our liberty and First Amendment free speech. Government attempts to intimidate civic and advocacy organizations through forced disclosure of donor list and member information goes back generations. And many of you, and I suspect some in this chamber, may be familiar with a landmark decision in 1958, the NAACP versus Alabama. This bill that we've got before you now protects nonprofit organizations from having to disclose personal information of its members and its donors to public agencies, except in some very narrow circumstances. And basically there are three. One, where that information is needed as part of ongoing litigation from a discovery process. Two, in the event that you've got it pursuant to a legal warrant, of course the information has to be provided. And then three, when engaging in contractual obligations with the state. Sometimes that information needs to be provided. When the personal information is properly disclosed to public agencies, the bill protects it from public disclosure by penalizing the unauthorized release of that information. The bill does not affect the required disclosures related to campaign organizations or registration as an entity doing business in the state, nor does it change the current processes that the state agencies engage in having to regulate and license non-charitable organizations such as nonprofit banks or credit unions. If you'll look at lines 46 in the bill, it sets out the narrow exceptions from when the bill doesn't apply. On your desk, you will see a friendly amendment that is offered by my good friend from the Appropriations Chair, Senator from the 19th. And it flagged, and I thank the Senator from the 19th for flagging a potential issue that the language in this bill could be interpreted to allow development authorities to not have to respond to open records requests, and so we cleared that up, and so I would support amendment number 1 to make sure that that information is not exempt as cleared up by this amendment. You'll also see on your desk a lengthy list of organizations that support this bill, Senate Bill 414. It's 2 pages. It's got, I don't know how many, folks. There may be 100 or more than 100 different organizations. Take a minute and look at that. You'll see that the organizations that support this effort are completely across the political spectrum, not just the middle, the far left, the far right. And what it demonstrates is this is absolutely not a political issue. It's not a right. It's not a left. It is really an apolitical issue. And that is, we want to make sure that our charitable organizations are not forced by state agencies to improperly disclose donor list and information in a way that is used then to harm that charitable organization and the good work that they're simply trying to do. Mr. President, I think that addresses most of what I wanted. I'm can go further into the details of the bill, but I've given you the highlights of it. You'll see the definitions are there, but if you're looking for the main part, if you'll start in lines 35 and read through lines 43, that simply tells you what the bill does. The exceptions start at lines 47, and then you'll see that there's the enforcement mechanisms that start at lines 93 and going forward. And with that, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions about the bill, or I'll be happy to yield the well.
You do have one question, Senator.
Okay.
Recognize the Senator from the 41st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you yield, Senator?
I certainly do.
Sir, I just want to clarify, when you spoke about what's on our desk,
Yes.
the many, many organizations that are listed here, are they listed because they are in support of did they sign on to your bill specifically, or did they sign on to something else?
Well, they can't sign on to my bill, right?
Did they
because they're not
endorse your
legislators.
specific bill? I'm
It
sorry.
is my understanding that they do endorse this, and they also endorse this measure. This measure has been sought in other states as well. And my understanding is that they specifically support this measure of Senate Bill 414. They have also gone on record in supporting similar measures in other states as well.
Thank you.
Yes, happy to.
Senator, you already addressed the amendment that you're offering, hadn't you?
Yes, Mr. President, I did.
You
The
have
one
no
amendment.
You have no further questions. You have no more questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
We do have a minority report on this bill, and it has been read, and I'll recognize the senator from the 42nd to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. I just wanted to raise a couple concerns that I have about this piece of legislation. I think we can't consider it without considering what is the current state of American political life and discourse when it comes to outside spending that impacts our political system. Our system already seriously lacks transparency and accountability. And the American people know it, and they do not like it. So my objection with this legislation is that it protects not only legitimate charities, nonprofits like 501c3s, but it also enables 501c4s or, quote unquote, social welfare organizations to also further obscure their financing sources on the state level, and thereby it manages to make dark money even darker. 501c4 organizations that influence politics don't have to disclose their donors, but they spend to influence elections and cannot reveal the sources of their funding. And even though super PACs are legally required to disclose their donors, they only need to disclose that they got money from another PAC or a dark money group, 501c4, without anyone knowing who donated to that group. All of this system has acted over recent decades to seriously weaken Americans' trust that what brings us here and influences our votes is our own careful analysis of legislation and what's right and wrong. And every time we further obscure all the sources of funding that just permeate our electoral processes, even if it's not for a direct campaign, but it's these dark money 501c4 groups, we make that problem worse. And a lot of times when you're talking about state and local politics, that problem is amplified because they're often much more low information elections where it may not take much advertising to sway voters. And the lower costs make it that much easier for dark and gray money groups to flood state and local elections with unaccountable messages. I'll give you a couple examples. Entities with deceptively community-minded names Californians for Good Schools and Good Jobs. That was a group shielding money from a Texas oil company. Proper Role of Government Education Association shielded payday lenders. That was payday lending money. They could invest relatively modest amounts but still saturate the airwaves and mailboxes. We can't change what's going on at federal law, but we can act at the state level to recognize the real discomfort that Americans have with these organizations that really shouldn't be put in with charities at all. The more Americans can at least see who is spending to influence their votes, the more they can do their own homework and analysis, so the policies that they truly do support and want are more appropriately reflected within the four walls of this chamber. Again, my main objection, I don't have any problem with, looking at this list. This is not folks who have looked at this bill. This is folks who weighed in at the Supreme Court level. The Children's Museum of Evansville and the Humane Society of Charlotte, those are 501c3s. They do real charitable work. I'm talking about the organizations that are not doing anything that is remotely similar to actual charitable work. They are dark money groups that spend to influence public opinion to get their way when they can outspend other viewpoints. And that's why I opposed the bill and just wanted to raise some concerns. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions.
You do have one question. Senator from the 41st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you yield.
I certainly do. My good friend from DeKalb.
So isn't it true that if, let's say, a foreign agent gave money to a 501c4, that this bill would allow them to hide that money and we would not know that, name a country that we're afraid of, gave money to that 501c4? 501c4.
Senator, thank you for raising that because I actually meant to touch on that in my remarks. Yes, we just passed SB 368, which was designed to keep foreign money out of our elections, and this bill is the complete opposite direction because it opens the door through 501c4s for foreign nationals to influence American elections and voting, and that's another good reason to have some concern about this legislation. Thank you for the question. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? I'm going to. I'm going to call on the senator from the 18th to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to address the comments that were made. Let me begin. I appreciate the senator from DeKalb's comments, but they're all rooted in one failure, and it is a failure to read the bill. I want to direct your attention to line 47, which says, any report or disclosure, this is if you'll look under line 46, subsection D, subsections B and C of this code section shall not apply to, any report or disclosure required by Chapter 5 of Title 41. That's all the financial disclosures regarding campaigns that we have on Georgia law. So it simply does not apply. So the basis upon which she is talking about dark money and foreign money and all those other things don't apply. It's specifically excluded here. The arguments that were made that somehow she likes protecting charities, but it allows 501c4s to further obscure their behavior is simply not true. If a 501c4 gets into politics or engages in political issues, then there are independent disclosure requirements under Georgia law. If it's a 501c4 that does not get into politics, then of course those aren't the disclosures, right? The disclosures wouldn't apply that do apply for or are applicable to political issues. But everything she's talking about stems from this supposed fear that this is going to transcend into the hiding of money related to political purposes. But our Georgia law takes care of that. So with all due respect, I appreciate the concern. It's simply not present here because the way the bill is crafted, it specifically excludes that. I do want to address one of the questions that Senator from the 41st, and I want to clarify about the letter that's on the table. I want to tell you, some of these organizations, in fact, specifically have stated they support this bill, but not all of them. I went back and read with further detail and checked with my counsel, quite frankly, and I want to be completely transparent on all that. All of these organizations, again, from the far left, the middle right, and the far right, have all ascribed to the Bonita decision, which is the Supreme Court decision that says specifically what this bill seeks to put into Georgia law. So thank you, Senator, for the question. I want to make sure I'm, as always, completely transparent with my colleagues here. Again, just to sort of recap, I think we all know this, but 501c3s are not political. They're purely charitable, right? 501c4s, which is what we're dealing with here, can be purely charitable, or they can get into political issues. And if they get into political issues, then they have the layer of the requirement of Georgia law on disclosures. Nothing about that is addressed, weakened, watered down, or changed because of the language found in lines 46 and 47 that it excludes any report or disclosure required by Chapter 5 of Title 21. So, this issue in question about foreign money being involved in politics, if foreign money wants to contribute money, foreigners want to contribute money to a charitable organization, they can do that. But if a foreign country wants to contribute money to a 501c4 that is involved in political efforts, that has to be disclosed because our Georgia law requires that, and lines 46 and 47 specifically exclude the effect of this bill to change that in any way. All of those requirements, all of those campaign disclosure requirements remain in place. So, with that, I appreciate the commentary, but it simply is a product of not understanding and not knowing what this bill does. So, with that, Mr. President, I will yield the well and ask you to vote for this. This is something that, in addition to all of the many folks that support this effort, organizations, I submit to you this is an apolitical issue. This comes to us from the philanthropic roundtable, who simply try to make sure that the policies we have around this country in various states encourage our citizens to devote and contribute money to various charitable organizations to continue the good work that they do. That's what this is about. When it gets off the rails is when state agencies improperly use government power to try to enforce the disclosure of those membership lists. For what reason? For an improper reason to put pressure on them to hurt the charity. We've seen that happen, unfortunately, in this country, and it ought not to go on, and we certainly don't want it to go on here in Georgia. This bill would stop that. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senators yielded the well. And he's closed debate. So we're moving to the amendments, which is Amendment 1 adopted by the senator, or authored by the senator from the 18th, the author of the underlying bill. Is there objection to Amendment 1? Without objection, Amendment 1 is adopted. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Hearing none, the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the Board of Committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. Board of Committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 33 and the nays are 22. This bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. All right, this is going to be our last bill before lunch here. I know the Pro Tem's office has got lunch for everyone. I'll let them announce that to you guys when we break, where it's going to be and everything. But Secretary Reed, Senate Bill 425.
Senate Bill 425, a bill by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 19 of Title 15 and Article 1 of Chapter 17 of Title 45 of the OCGA, relating to the regulation of the practice of law and general provisions and other purposes. The Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 425, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 19 and of Title 15 and Article 1 of Chapter 17 of Title 45 of the OCGA, relating to the regulation of the practice of law and general provisions regarding notaries public, respectively, and for the purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the Senator from the 19th. Speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 425. It's a bill that we started in this chamber 4 years ago related to online notary, and I vehemently opposed it. For 4 years, we've battled back and forth and tried to work with folks on the other side to see if we could find a compromise, and I think this year we've been able to come to that point where it's time to see if we can move forward with this idea. As you know, after COVID, many more people moved online with their meetings. They also moved online with a lot of their banking and now with their notaries. Many states have already recognized this. Georgia has not. What Senate Bill 425 would allow is for notaries to be, online notaries to be allowed in every instance in Georgia, except as it relates to wills, certain estate documents, and as to real estate closings. There is a provision, though, that would allow it for real estate closings when there are other provisions that are provided to make sure that that closing has a tie and a nexus to Georgia through the bank and through the attorney. The attorney's how you tie it to the Georgia bank. It's a bill that I think has been long overdue. I appreciate all the work that folks have put in to help us get to this point. And while I still am not getting everything I wanted in this bill, it's at a point that I do think we should allow technology to proceed against my reservations and move forward to the House. Thank you for working with me on it these past few years. And Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You do have a couple questions, Senator. Senator from the 32nd.
Thank you, Senator. Would you yield the will for a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that either 1 or 2 years ago when we talked about this bill, we all got more feedback on this bill than probably any other bill that we talked about?
I think there was a lot of feedback. Yes, ma'am. A lot of folks were wondering if we could do this in a way that would still protect the Georgia nexus for Georgia banks, make sure we had ties also in such situations when you were trying to clear title to make sure there was still ways you could find out the answers in Georgia.
And Senator Gio for one more.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that I haven't heard from one person on this bill this year?
Oh, wow. That's good. I'm sure the lady knows what she speaks.
You do have another question. Senator from 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
Certainly, from my friend from
Is
Northwest
this
Georgia.
legislation mandating that a real estate transaction you have to use an attorney?
No, it does. Well, Georgia law actually already requires that you have to use an attorney unless you want to represent yourself. So that is already required in Georgia law for real estate closings. You still can represent yourself. That's not precluded in this law. What it does say is that if you wish to use a remote online notary in a real estate closing in Georgia on a closing for houses of 1 to 4, then the notary has to be an attorney for the purposes of us being able to do the unauthorized practice of law provisions.
Recognize Senator from 21st.
Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
Would this affect bond documents from a development authority where they have a notary? Could they do it electronically, or does it have to be by an...
So the only thing that is required to have the provisions that we've placed in this bill or is excluded from being able to use the online notary rather, would be things related to wills and estates and real estate closings with 1 to 4 houses. We even took and pulled commercial real estate out for as much as we could.
Thank you.
You have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the Senate. I urge your favorable consideration.
Senator, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from 51st, for what purpose do you rise?
Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that this may be the first attorney bill we have passed without any debate?
You know, we had a direct action bill that we passed earlier this session, Senator, and it was authored by the senator from the 19th, and I was proud he's building bridges. I can't wait to see what his premises liability bill that he brings later this session is.
Parliamentary inquiry, isn't it true?
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true there's another guy that looks just like him in the building? Maybe we have the wrong senator from the 19th in the chamber.
On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. All right, we're going to break for lunch. Senator, if you want to announce everybody about where your lunch is and where all that good stuff, you're welcome to. But we're going to recess, and we'll come back in a little after 1:15 or so. We're in recess.
We do have lunch on the way. It should be here in about 10 minutes. It'll be in the ante room. So give us about 10 minutes. We'll have it there for us. Thank you.